Galen Tyler.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Speaking at, when you think about the United States World Court of Women, and then actually being a male speaking at it, it's kind of an honor. So I'm honored that I'm able here to speak, as well as the men that spoke before me. Like Sherry said, my name's Galen Tyler. I'm originally from Virginia. In a rural area called Ordinary Virginia. It's kind of funny, but that's the name of it. It's called Ordinary Virginia. It's probably about anywhere from like 40,000, 50,000 people. It's very small. You pretty much know everybody. I grew up, two parents households, just, thinking about, how I was going to do the same thing, that my mother and father was doing. Had a lot of issues growing up, just based on being in a community that was predominantly white, kind of always, doing class and through, all the teachers and learnings, somehow when they talked about like slavery and U.S. history and world history, always kind of made it like an issue of color. And so kind of being in a classroom filled with people that thought it was like a joke, that I was the person of color, and it was like only like one or two people in the class that, that was of color. It was always like this major fight back, kind of like at a young age, I always wanted to fight back and prove, all the things that I was hearing about, like, from blacks being 3/5 of a man and stuff like that. And, of course, most of the misery, that was happening strictly to people of color. And so, just always wanting to fight that back, I got into a lot of trouble just by, challenging authority, on just about any and everything that they said to me and stuff. And so, did a pretty good job of, with school as far as grades and stuff like that. Made pretty good grades and stuff like that, but, father and mother. Mother was like a housekeeper and a pastor. It was kind of funny. She was a pastor of a church at the same time, cleaning houses. Kind of didn't like that growing up. My father, he was pretty much this guy was, I kind of looked at him like I really loved my father. My father passed away, like a couple years ago. Like my father did a lot of great things as far as like providing for the family and stuff like that. But far as nurturing, and like a lot of the questions that I had with the major contradictions that I was having, he kind of always used to tell me just don't pay that no mind, just work hard, go to school, keep getting an education, stop getting in trouble, stop always, causing, this whole thing around it's about me thing. And I never really thought it was about me, but when I look back at it, I can see that the reason why I did most of the things that I did as a youth in school was about really me, myself, trying to figure out how was I going to beat back all those stereotypes that they was pretty much, saying. And so, I grew up in a pretty large household, 6 other brothers and sisters. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. Come from a large family. My grandma had a lot of kids. My aunts had a lot of kids, just from a big, large family in the South. Just kind of seemed like all my relatives just had a lot of kids and stuff. Same with me. I have 7 kids myself. And just like my father, I tried to be there to provide for him, since day one. But I wanted to kind of add something different to him, give him a little insight on some of the things that I always constantly saw was wrong. And it was probably a gift and a curse, and so I think I probably passed it on to them too, as well as constantly challenging, things that they don't see as right. And so after I graduated from high school, I graduated in 1988, and June and September of '88, I went into the military. I took the test, bam, got like higher score. You could be whatever you want to be in the military and all that other stuff. But I went in as a medic, I was already kind of like, I think back, I was kind of scheming, thinking to myself like, I'm not trying to be no grunt carrying a gun and nothing like that. I wanted to be a medic, laid back, chill, maybe help people at a medical station. From day one, I wanted to go to Fort Sam Houston and just work, in an aid station or something, just helping people out. And I made this all kind of clear to my recruiter, before I went in, and he laid it out to me like, oh, you're getting exactly that. I put all these choices, that I wanted, and didn't want to leave the United States. Like, traveling outside the country was like the farthest thing from my mind. But what happened is like, boom, after I went to basic training in Fort Knox and then went to Fort Sam Houston, for AIT training, bam, they sent me straight to Germany in an infantry unit. And I was like, as a medic, I'm still a grunt, And so I was like, that's like a major contradiction to my contract, what I thought was a contract, right? And so like, from time I got in Germany, it was like all set up, pretty much for me to be like blind, deaf, and dumb, to any and everything that was going on around me. Over in Germany, at 18, you're allowed to drink alcohol. So it was like, you go to work, and then every break is like all about alcohol. Like the military just had us thinking that everything was about like, wait till we get off so we can drink. And so it was like going to like Burger King and ordering a Whopper and getting a heavy Weissen, right inside of a Burger King. And at like 18, you kind of thought that was like great, He's like, this is like the best thing, like I could just drink and, people are encouraging me to drink. And, but on the flip side of that, while I was over there, I started missing a lot of, family and friends. Had baby on the way that, came and wanting to be back here in the United States. Thought I was going to be able to leave when I wanted to, as far as like put in some request for a vacation or something, and they let me come back to the States. And they had all these different rules around all that stuff about when you can leave and how long your tour was. And it was like all the things opposite of what my recruiter told me. So it was like, started really disliking the United States. I mean, and it wasn't so much of the people, because I wanted to get back to the people, but I was like, had major problems with the government and the army and military in particular. And one of the things that, really kind of like messed me up is because, like, just like me and, hundreds of millions of other people, in this country, pretty much buy into that American dream thing, working hard, getting a good education. So, I went in on the GI Bill, the college fund, thinking all this was going to be like quick, easy, dough. Like I'm already just thinking like, how I'm going to play them just because my mom and dad couldn't afford for me to go to college. So I was just thinking how I was going to play them by just being a medic, sitting back, not. But then they was giving me an M16 and 45 and like carrying all these bags and all this stuff like that. And I was like, pretty much got even more mad at my recruiter. And so started just drinking a lot, taking it out on like anything that I thought was like a contradiction to my life. And so, I had this thing, like I said, buying into like this whole stuff that you learn in school and stuff. I thought that, the Germans were like, they made it seem to me growing up in my rural area in Gloucester, ordinary Virginia, I thought that they was like, the Germans were there like the enemy, like, They made it seem like just learning about Hitler and a number of other different things, not really clarifying it, kids are today are blessed, to be able to have access to the internet and be able to like do research and do things and study on your own at easy access at your fingers. But like living in a rural area with like one library that's down in the courthouse, you know what I mean? Like the education you got was from, the family and the school and people that live like down the road that you lived on. You didn't get educated, from a worldly view. And so I was thinking we was over in Germany, just because, at 18 I was dumb, to it. I thought we was over there because like we was waiting for them to do something wrong so we could, protect the United States, And so I just bought into that, I got into a few altercations, with some German civilians. It wasn't no real big deal until like I said, it was a lot of drinking and a lot of male testosterone, always bubbling in us. Just, not having my partner, over in Germany with me, and, the whole exploiting of women, over there in Germany with the red light district and all that stuff, kind of really dummy down, all the humane things that, that I was trying to become, trying to beat back all these contradictions, end up, I was falling, right into the same line. And actually met a friend over there. I thought, it wasn't like I was trying to make this some long-term relationship or nothing like that, but a couple of German guys didn't like it. A guy plucked a cigarette at me. We end up getting into a fight. He hit his head on the curve and he went into a coma. And so, I caught a cab, like right after it happened, I'm all like, boom, jump in the cab, let's get out of here. But going back to the military, everybody's always sitting right there signing you in when you come in. They just say, okay, boom, Galen Tyler just came in, and they just put the time and stuff. And so, the German police, they very smart, Like, boom, they asked the cab company, would you give a cab ride at this time? They told them exactly where they dropped them off at. They came right into there. They read the login, and they seen what time I came in from the cab, and I got arrested, for attempted murder. And I was like, whoa, attempted murder, like what happened? And I didn't know the guy, I only hit him like 2 times, but he fell and hit his head on the concrete. And he, like I said, he went into a coma. So he was in a coma for like 6 months, and popped out of a coma, and I was confined to the barracks, and they was trying to wait on whether they're gonna charge me with attempted murder or murder. So I had all these, just people, they took everything. I was just pretty much confined to the barracks and stuff. And so I really went on a tantrum then, far as lieutenant, sergeant, master sergeants, anybody that had rank, I was pretty much fighting. I would wear my hat to the side. I was a medic, so I grew a beard. I did all the opposites of the military, and got into a lot of trouble over there, just really trying to get home. But like I said, he was in a coma for 6 months, and he popped out, and he's pointed me out, a picture said that was me. I was like, yo, how'd somebody be in coma for 6 months, and the next day they say, I'm IDing, that's that guy right there. And so, they threatened me and tried to get me to take, all these different plea deals and stuff, on attempted murder. And I was like, what was I looking at? They was talking 20 years. And I was like, yo, 20 years in a German prison is signing myself to death. I was just thinking, nah, no way. And so after that, I really was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I had a couple of guys that were in the military that loved Germany somehow. They was really loving it over there. They just kept re-enlisting to stay over there. And they told me I should go hire a lawyer and not take the attorney general that they was offering me that was just pretty much just working with the German courts. And once I found out that the Attorney General was working with the German courts, like that made me dislike, the military even more. And once I hired, like you just had money because you didn't really have to spend money on anything. They fed you, they housed you, everything. So like I used my savings to pay for a lawyer, and it was kind of crazy to me, but it kind of opened my eyes up to the system that by when I had the military lawyer, the Attorney General working for me, they was offering me plea deals. When I paid the lawyer, I went into court, within like a month, and he asked like one question, he asked a few questions, like what's your name, stuff like that, how long you was in a coma, and then he just asked him a couple questions. Do you see the person who did it to you? He pointed me out, made me stand up, and then he asked him from 0 to 100, how sure are you? And the guy said about 75% sure. And my lawyer sat down, and I was like, 75%? That's a conviction. What you doing? And he was like, I started crying. Right then when the guy said 75%, and my lawyer said no more questions. I was like, I just paid him all that money. He's doing even worse, But then while I was crying, he just came over there and patted me on my back, whispered in my ear, and said like, 25% chance that it wasn't you. Don't worry about it. Like that. And then I opened my eyes and I was like, that's what money do? Money allow a person to be able to like pretty much dictate, a person's life, where it's headed. So now that he got me off of that, the military tried me probably about like 3 or 4 months later and found me guilty on all the things that I just got found not guilty on in the German courts. So now I got found guilty on all that, and I got a less than honorable discharge. I didn't get a dishonorable discharge. I got like a less than honorable discharge. And so when I came back to the United States, I was pretty much mad at the United States. Like nothing that the United States could do would not make me check and see exactly what they was up to. Like I was always like constantly trying to figure out like, all these different issues from the church, I started, started questioning the church because, like I said, my mom was a pastor growing up. She had me at church like 3 times a week. And then I started seeing all the major contradictions. And then from there, I went on to just started challenging stuff about the school system because I was trying to get my GI Bill to go to school. And they was like, you couldn't get that. And I was like, I took all this money out my check each month, so I could get that. And now I can't get that, and I don't get my money back. So I was mad about that. So I started looking at the school system, and then pretty much just started working jobs, any and every job under the sun, worked at hospitals, restaurants, doing labor. And as a kid, like I said, my dad, we grew up in the South, so we had a lot of kids, so every time something broke or whatever, my dad would just fix it. And I was always the one, or my brothers, we always had to be out there helping them. And so while people was playing basketball, I could look and see people playing football. I was always working around the house, doing all these different type of labor jobs. So I always grew up saying I am not going to do labor unless it's for me, And so even though I started working all these jobs, I was always trying to figure out a way, to get in school and get a job where I can talk and get money. And that's always one of the things that I always thought that I was going to be able to do is talk, lecture, do something, help kids, help youth, do anything but some real labor or something, just to kind of give an education to kids that I didn't get. And that's what I was really pressed about doing. But in my travels, I wasn't, perfect guy or anything like that. I was just human, made mistakes. So I did a lot of different things. Like I said, it wasn't perfect, but it was human. And so I kept on going on, and I kept trying to figure out different things. Pretty soon, by 1997, I got 3 kids now. And I end up get my house foreclosed on and end up losing my house. I was living in Chesterfield, Virginia, outside of Richmond. And I had a relative that told me about like the Kensington Welfare Rights Union here in Philadelphia. Always been coming to Philadelphia since I was a kid. Used to cut school and come up to Philadelphia, see my cousins, see my aunts and them, my family. And so when I got foreclosed on, I came up here and stayed with a relative in Philadelphia. My wife, she's originally from Philadelphia, so she stayed with some relatives in Philadelphia. In West Philly, I was living in the Northeast, and the relative I was staying with told me about the Kensington Welfare Rights Union, and that's how I kind of got involved. And I was like, still always looking at any and everybody as suspect. Didn't really have no trust, but it was some of the issues that people was talking about, because I was homeless at the time. I didn't really know I was homeless, but because just buying into the stereotypes, I thought homeless people were those Vietnam vets, those drug and alcohol people, those homeless, the bums, drug people. And just coming to a couple of meetings and seeing some of the women, children that was homeless, and hearing some of the facts and statistics about like homelessness and poverty in the United States. And I was like, now I really want to learn, And so all the things that I was kind of like trying to answer these questions, on my own, now I was like a group of people trying to figure out how to answer these questions. And this was like in 1997. But still, at the time, I was still trying to work. That was, much as I hated labor, I always end up getting a job, doing some type of labor. And I was working at this linen and rental company, but I was also staying inside one of the human rights houses in Philadelphia. And so this human rights house was like 3 other families staying there, a couple of college students, any and everybody that probably needed a space for a day or a night coming in and out of town was staying there. And so it was like, wow, like people do care, and people was very multiracial. That was like one of the like founding principles, in this organization about like not leaving no one behind regardless of what they look like, their race, their color, their sexual preference, what geographical location you're from, rural or city. It was just like whether you're from this country or not from this country. Like it was all these things that they was talking about that I was like, sound like the next level stuff, from Martin Luther King, Malcolm, and then made me really want to start like reading, studying, and doing a lot more. Had a lot of people around throwing literature at you, trying to get you to see that like you wasn't the only one in this country with this problem. And so once I got a hold of that, it was like similar to what Muhammad was saying earlier, about knowing your niche and your calling, and and like finding it. And so I've been a part of this movement, since like 1997. Really got involved when we did the bus tour in 1998, where we was documenting economic human rights violations around the country. I was just about to start getting medical and some benefits at the linen and rental company. Wife did a sit-in. Well, they was out in Love Park. They was right around town. John Street was trying to lock. No, it wasn't John. He was city council president at the time, and he was pushing this thing around like locking up all the homeless people in Love Park, and nobody being able to like stand in the same, spot, a collective group for longer, then like I think it was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He was trying to pass some crazy bill, and my wife stayed out in Love Park, sleeping out with the homeless families, and they was doing it for like weeks, and she would come back at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd leave and go to work and be there by like 6. And then it was one of the times where they was about to get arrested, and she didn't come back. They didn't get there till like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And so I was late to work, and it was like I think it was like May 28th, May 29th. And I think I was about to get my benefits in like June for working there 6 months. And it was like I came to work late and it was like, we'll need you today, you know what I mean, da da da. So I was like, okay, cool, free day. And then when I went back to work the next day, they was like, oh, we don't need you anymore, you're fired, like that. And so didn't really think it had anything to do with the benefits and like that until I started like traveling and hearing other people saying the same thing happened to them. I was like, oh, like being late to work was no big deal. But when they found out that like I was one of those workers that was probably about to get ready to get benefits, you know, within like a few days, they was like they didn't need me anymore. So June 1st was the bus tour, you know what I mean, for the Freedom Bus tour so it was like 3-4 days later they was doing a bus tour. So it was like me and my wife took turns as far as the kids going to school and going on the bus tour. And it was like really eye-opener because the things that I was hearing, you know, I was able to see. And once, you know, it's a lot of times like when you get like I think Rose hinted on it, everything, like a lot of people have like the knowledge and stuff like that. And us telling stories, you know, is that wisdom, those wise words, you know what I mean, being spoken by man, woman, and child are like the wisdom, you know what I mean? But to see things clearly, like that understanding, you know what I mean, to see things clearly as they are and not what they present themselves to be, was like the bus tour for me. Because even though I knew, you know what I mean, I heard, it was nothing better than really seeing it. And so knowing that I started learning like the real meaning of like human rights, because I always kept looking at it like, yo, I ain't perfect, but I'm human. That's how I always looked at it, you know. And that was like one of my lines I used to have in my head all the time. I ain't perfect, but I'm human. And then after the bus tour and started fighting around economic human rights, I was like, fighting for human rights, that's perfect, you know, like that's perfect, you know, making sure that each and everybody has a right to like a decent, dignified life, you know what I mean, being able to, you know, really, truly, you know, thrive and not just barely survive is like key. And you know, meeting people from all walks of life, you know, you name it, you know what I mean, being able to like meet these people and hear their stories straight from the horse's mouth and really see how like it touched me, you know, from the opening of the courts when the young woman came up and sang, Amani, I think that's her name, like all those words, like, you know what I mean, like I couldn't even hold it back because I was like, yo, that's what I always thought about. And then, you know, and I heard other people started repeating the same thing in their testimony, and then just keep hearing like from the youth, like even when Jose got up here, you know what I mean, and he said about like daydreaming and stuff like that, it's like, yo, that's the same thing all the rest of these visionaries and leaders that I be around, they do the same thing. And so when I hear it in like the youth already, when like how Paul said how the young woman from AAU laid out their whole, you know, her whole testimony, and you know, it was all vision in there. You know, it was like, you know, just straight vision of like how things could be much better in this country. And that's one of the reasons why like I'm here today, be here all weekend, because one thing I know and I've seen is that people do make changes, you know, and I've seen the impact of what a few can do to ensure things for the masses. And throughout history, it's always been the people that's been mostly affected by it, that's been the ones that's been able to tell their stories and being able to vocalize it to the point where, or articulate it to the point where people that might not be affected by it want to buy into it and say like, yeah, that is something that's wrong and I do want to be a part of that to make a change. And so the courts, you know, means a lot to me today, just to be here and be able to listen to other people's stories and stuff. Like the whole storytelling thing, I know people might look at it and say like, yeah, we hear a lot of story of misery and stuff like that all the time. But But I think, when you hear these stories and stuff of the misery, and it touches you to the point where you want to say, I don't want to see that happen to another single human, it allows you to start being visionary and start thinking about and asking the question why. I think why is like the smartest question, like the most important question, any and everybody can ask about any and everything is why. And when you ask why, these things are a certain way, you start coming up with like different answers, or make you go to different people that might have the answers. And so when we think about like why are all these different human rights violations that are happening in a country that supposedly was and the richest country in the world, and while they would like allow millions and millions of people in their country just go through the type of ills that people being affected by every day. So just hearing like I said, being at the courts and hearing people's stories, I see why they have been able to make changes in people's lives, and why these courts are important, and why like hearing someone's story allows you to be able to like start asking questions and start being able to come up with different visions, to really bring about a change. Thanks. And about like, from blacks being 3/5 of a man and stuff like that. And, like, of course, most of the misery, that was happening strictly to people of color. And so, like, just always wanting to fight that back, I got into a lot of trouble just by, challenging authority, on just about any and everything that they said to me and stuff. And so, did a pretty good job of like with school as far as grades and stuff like that. Made pretty good grades and stuff like that. But father and mother was like a housekeeper and a pastor. It was kind of funny.
Galen Tyler.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Speaking at, when you think about the United States World Court of Women, and then actually being a male speaking at it, it's kind of an honor. So I'm honored that I'm able here to speak, as well as the men that spoke before me. So, like Sherry said, my name's Galen Tyler. I'm originally from Virginia. In a rural area called Ordinary Virginia. It's kind of funny, but that's the name of it. It's called Ordinary Virginia. It's probably about anywhere from like 40,000, 50,000 people. It's very small. You pretty much know everybody. I grew up, two parents households, just, thinking about, how I was going to do the same thing, that my mother and father was doing. Had a lot of issues growing up, just based on being in a community that was, she was a pastor of a church at the same time, cleaning houses. Kind of didn't like that growing up. My father, he was pretty much this guy was, I kind of looked at him like I really loved my father. My father passed away, like a couple years ago. Like my father did a lot of great things as far as like providing for the family and stuff like that. But like far as like nurturing, and like a lot of the questions that I had with the major contradictions that I was having, he kind of like always used to tell me just like, don't pay that no mind, just work hard, predominantly white, kind of always, doing class and through, all the teachers and learnings, somehow when they talked about like slavery and U.S. history and world history, always kind of made it like an issue of color. And so kind of being in a classroom filled with people that thought it was like a joke, that I was the person of color, and it was like only like one or two people in the class that, that was of color. It was always like this major fight back. Kind of like at a young age, I always wanted to fight back and prove, all the things that I was hearing.